Welcome to the Armchair Fantasy Football Podcast. Here are your hosts, DJ Marcotte and John Soroyce. Enjoy the show.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Armchair Fantasy Football Podcast, the working class podcast and the perfect podcast for regular folks. We are cracking open a new episode of the Armchair Fantasy Football Podcast. We are cracking open some beers, and we are diving back in, guys, to the Armchair Consensus Rankings, and today is our updated running back rankings, and we're going to take myself, Thom, and John's rankings, and once again put them in a blender and discuss. Right, fellas?
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Thom, what did you do today?
I worked all day long.
Yeah, what do you... Oh, we don't need to get into what you do. It's kind of inappropriate. He manually does things to cows to continue the fertilization process. No, really, he does. What did you do today, John?
I can't even comment. I worked. I'm in the grocery store injury. I mean, in the
injury? Did you get injured there?
Sorry.
You might get injured.
I could, possibly.
You got to tell people to put masks on, right?
Yeah.
Do you do that?
I try to, but some don't listen.
Yeah, okay. Thom, do you put a mask on the cow at work, or?
I work with lobster, not
okay.
cows.
Was you manually lobsters? Okay, gotcha. Shellfish. Are you allergic to shellfish?
I hope not. I've been doing it for 3 years.
Well, see, we are all working class guys. We are the working class podcast, and like I said, it's all about running back rankings today, so that's pretty exciting. Today we're going to do a little bit different. The last episode we had two positions, quarterback and tight end, and today we're going to go backwards in the running back ranks. It's a little bit more fun to do it, and where we only have one position, we're going to go from the bottom to the top in a countdown, in a manner of speaking. But before we do that, and before we get into top 5 headlines, which we will, I can assure you, it's time to pull the pod. And my question for the armchair listeners, the armchair army, as well as the blue-collar ballers over here, is how many receptions should we expect from Josh Jacobs in 2020? John, I'll start with you.
I'm going to say right around 45, 40, right in that range.
All right, Thom, what do you think?
I was going to say 48, 3 a game.
3 a game? That's reasonable. It's reasonable. I had 40. So, interesting enough, none of us were over 50 necessarily. Thom, you were closest. John, you were kind of in that range too. Why don't you think it's going to be 60-ish or more?
They have more.
They just to preface that, they have said that they want to get Josh Jacobs involved in the passing game.
They have shiny new toys on the team. I mean, you got Brian Edwards, you got Henry Ruggs, you still got Waller. There's a lot of mouths to feed there, and I know they want to get him involved, but the question is that something they're actually going to keep their promise and do? Because if it is, then he'll easily finish a top 3 back if he goes over 50 or 60.
Yeah, Thom, you look at Coach Gruden, he's kind of an old school guy. Was he making Josh Jacobs pay his dues last year, or was it he wanted to make sure he could stay healthy, given that he's never had a huge workload? I believe less than 300 carries in his college career. So what was it that held them back last year from doing this, and will they do it this year?
I don't think they knew what they had in them last year. They just want to see what they had.
Yeah. And he had a shoulder injury, too, last year, too. So I think it's 40+. You guys are closer to 50. Boy, if it's 60, we're on to something here, and it's a top 5 upside running back. But there's a lot of guys that fit into that category. Joe Mixon, Miles Sanders, and definitely Josh Jacobs. I'm very excited about Josh Jacobs this year. But this is going to either be a scenario where he turns into a heavy workload type of guy, like maybe Dalvin Cook. So he could be Dalvin Cook this year, or he could be Joe Mixon, where his team never seems to give him what they should in terms of workload and quality of work, so to speak. So be sure to join the conversation on Facebook, in our Facebook group, or on our Facebook page, which you can find at Armchair Fantasy Football. Well, with that being said, John, let's get into top 5 headlines.
Okay, top 5 headlines. We'll start with the first one. Josh Jacobs for the Las Vegas Raiders says his goal is to at least catch 60 passes this year.
Wow, interesting. I guess that ties right into that, and we kind of discussed that, so let's move on to the next one.
Next one, Lamar.
So he thinks 60, so he thinks we're wrong, just for the record. And I asked that question having not known that this was going to be one of the top 5 headlines, so we're sharing a brain there.
Free agent Lamar Miller signs with the New England Patriots for a 1-year deal. My speculation would be that Sony's possibly going to miss the first half of the year, like we've been saying. He's going to probably be on the PUP. So I don't think Miller's your starting back here, but that's my opinion.
Well, with the speculation, if we want to use that word again, that this was a move by New England just in case Sony Michel wasn't ready, which would indicate to me that Sony Michel's their guy. I know you said Damian Harris is getting first-team reps right now, but who else is going to get that? Rex Burkhead, who can never stay healthy. I don't even know who else they have on their roster beyond that.
Yeah, I don't think they're trying to rush.
So to me, Sony is their guy. If they made that move based on his availability and just to be safe, he's a safety net as Lamar Miller, but he's a 1,000-yard safety net too, Tom.
Oh, yeah, he's a veteran running back. Belichick can trust him for the first 2 downs and put James White or Damian Harris out there on 3rd down, so...
And we know he can play behind a poor offensive line. He did that last year in Houston. Not saying this is a poor offensive line. This, I think, Tom, would be a dramatic upgrade for him.
Oh, yeah, they're top 10, I believe, last year. I think they're 9th or 10th overall, so...
So Lamar Miller, we could have something here with Lamar Miller if Sony Michel is out. But then again, they could go with Damian Harris. But to me, wouldn't they pick up like I'm just going to throw a name out here, but like a Quadri Olison level player if they were that serious about Damian Harris's ability to step in as a lead back. But no, they picked a guy that's done it before, has gotten 1,000-yard rushing seasons before, has caught passes as well in Miami, caught his fair share of reception. And last year, I mean, he was one of 2 guys in Houston to get 1,000 yards. He was a shade under. I think it was a 968. I don't know if that's exactly right, but Lamar Miller is a guy that you can put in there and be a workhorse back. We know that. So that's a little scary for me when we talk about Damian Harris. I think it's encouraging though for Sony Michel because it just indicates to me that he's the guy they expect to be their lead back, and Lamar Miller is there just in case he's not available. Do you guys agree with that? If you don't, it's okay.
No, I think he's just more for insurance. Burkhead can never stay healthy.
Nor can Sony Michel, frankly, although he was available for most of the year.
Yeah, but I think Sony's their guy. That's why they don't want to rush him. That's why they kind of signed a veteran, so someone they don't have to really build up too much and is already experienced. Playing already. I mean, he did well with Houston. His last year, he did have 973 yards, but only in 14 games.
973.
So he was
on pace for sure.
He had easily had 1,000.
Right.
And he clipped 1,000 twice before that in 2016 and 2014. So
Tom, your body language reads that you might not be on the same page as me on this.
He's just on the team. Bill Belichick gets veteran running backs on the team. He has 5 or 6 guys on the team. He might not even make it through training camp.
And this might just be another reason to avoid this backfield altogether, we typically do.
Unless you get James White, otherwise than that.
White, yeah, White could be very interesting this year, and even I think Cam Newton has stated that he's interested in in James White. So
Belichick could also be reviving the dead here. Look what he did with Corey Dillon. We could get even one season out of him. Productive.
Or their overrated defense could get exposed, especially without Hightower. And they could be throwing all the time because they're playing from behind. Any of those things could happen. I would prefer the latter be the case, but you never know with the Patriots. Everything always seems to fall their way. So what do you got next, John?
So next bit of news is a 2-for-1 deal. Both the top tight ends in the league, George Kittle and Travis Kelce, get new contracts. Kittle's contract is 5 years, $75 million, with I believe like $48 million guaranteed. That includes the signing bonus. And then Travis Kelce's contract is a 4-year extension, $57.25 million.
So what does this mean for fantasy? I mean, it's more of a dynasty piece of news. What it means, though, is that Travis Kelce, the rest of his career, will have Patrick Mahomes throwing to him in all likelihood. He's 31 years old, in that range. He'll be 34 at the end of this contract. And, of course, George Kittle, similar scenario. He doesn't have Pat Mahomes, but he is the target hog of that team, and that's going to be a situation that I don't think is going to change significantly over the course of that contract. What do you think, Thom?
Oh, no. They're both the top 2 running tight ends in the NFL. They should get paid the top two salaries, which they are now. So.
Yes, John, Austin Hooper getting paid more than these two guys was criminal. So we're
Oh, I agree with that.
it's
These
a good
guys,
thing that this happened, especially for these.
And
two
then
guys.
you don't have to worry about the fact that I know people were worried about Kittle possibly holding out, but I didn't think he was ever going to hold out. I never heard that once, but I know that's a little bit of a speculation.
No, you're right. Yep, that's definitely
always sits in the back of the mind just in case because of previous players.
Yep.
So number two news per ESPN's Lindsay Theory, Cam Akers could get an early shot to lead the Rams backfield.
Any relation to Austin Theory, Tom?
I don't know.
Okay. What was that again, John? I wasn't paying attention. You threw me off with Lindsay Theory.
Lindsay Theory per ESPN says Cam Akers for the LA Rams could get an early shot to lead the Rams backfield.
Cameron Akers. I happen to agree with this. I think he will lead the backfield. I do not, unlike Tom, believe in Darrell Henderson. He has got bust written all over him, and he's shown us nothing in the NFL since his arrival. Doesn't mean this isn't a three-headed monster situation that could be concerning in the way that the San Francisco backfield is concerning. John.
I agree 100%. Who's going to be the back that possibly take the reins, or is it the hot hand approach? It's as scary as a fantasy owner because if you draft the wrong running back, then you're down a running back. You're in a bad place.
And McVay has even said, Tom, that he admires what they do in San Francisco in terms of running the ball. So while you have Darrell Henderson higher than the rest in this team, are you concerned similarly in terms of the spread that's going to happen here?
Oh yeah, I don't want to touch any of them right now. You have to wait and see on all three of those guys on that field. So
and with no preseason, it's going to make it even more difficult.
If anything, I would take one of them as like my fourth or fifth back probably. If anything, if I had to take a chance on one, only because
but that's not going to happen.
No, I know.
I mean, Henderson might, but you're not getting Cam Akers as your fifth back, and he's the best. I think he's the best talent in that backfield, and we know that he's done well behind a bad offensive line, but that was in college, and there is a difference. So will that translate to the NFL? Who knows?
So number one bit of news, Arizona's Kyler Murray says three Cardinals wide receivers could go for 1,000 receiving yards each this year, and he's talking about DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Kirk, and Larry Fitzgerald.
Andy Isabella chimed in too and said, I'm ready this year. So I mean, they've got so many weapons on that team, Tom, but to me, I really only see, I think Kirk's going to have a great year. I think Hopkins is going to have a great year. I don't know if I see Larry Fitzgerald as a 1,000-yard receiver. Do you think this can happen?
If the other two get all the defenders, he can be one-on-one down the sideline. He's still a big body out there, so you could possibly see that. They did in 2009, I believe, the three Arizona Cardinals.
And like you alluded to on the last episode, this is a situation where they don't utilize the tight end, and I don't think they have any intention of doing so, and Larry Fitzgerald could be a tight end wide receiver hybrid for this team, John. Do you think that could happen?
It easily could happen. He has not eclipsed 1,000 yards since 2017.
I think he's had some injuries too, though, hasn't he, guys?
No, he's played all 16 games.
Okay, well, I'm way off on that. Thank
he
you
has
for
not,
confirming.
Sorry. He has
that's quite all right.
He has not missed any time since 2014 where he missed 2 games, but he has not seen over 100 receptions since 2017.
But he's also had Red Skelton or whatever that guy's name thrown. I mean, he's had some rough quarterback situations up until the arrival of Kyler Murray. So kind of between Carson Wentz and Kyler Murray, Tom, I don't think he had much to throw to him at the quarterback position.
Oh, no. He's still one of the best receivers out there, even at his age. So he's smart.
Right. Yeah, no, he's for a guy that's 36, 37, he's in great shape.
Yeah, he had 804 receiving yards last year. There is a good possibility he could see 1,000, especially if he's using that tight end hybrid spot. Definitely think that it could happen. I mean, he could go, who knows, it could be his last year too and go out with 1,000 yards.
But Andy Isabella's good, guys. I loved him last year out of UMass. His athleticism is unbelievable. This guy's fast. He's athletic. He's explosive. I don't want to quit him quite yet. I don't want to quit on him, but just know that he's there, and he could definitely affect Fitzgerald's productivity. But this could definitely happen.
That's it on news.
That's it. Oh my God, that was invigorating, John. Thank you for bringing the news and bringing your A game on the news. And if you guys are ready, we will get into our top 24 running backs. Who's number one? I think you guys might be surprised, you the listeners. Hopefully you guys aren't surprised, but You could be. You're old. You're both old and you're forgetful, so this is a definite possibility. As long as you know your names, we can make this happen. So, number 24, guys. Who do you think it is?
Chris Carson.
Kareem Hunt.
It is not Chris Carson. It is Kareem Hunt. I ranked Kareem Hunt at 24, guys. I ranked him behind Chris Carson. Funny you should mention that name, and it didn't feel good to me. But there is definitely the potential, clearly, for Chris Carson to carry the workload in Seattle. That's not going to happen in Cleveland. We know that. Provided that Nick Chubb is healthy, and we're going to assume that he is, that's not going to happen in Cleveland. Thom, coincidentally, you also ranked Kareem Hunt at 24. And Thom, you had Kareem Hunt. You didn't have him ranked at all. So
he's probably right
that's
around.
interesting to me. So what makes you like Kareem Hunt more than somebody that you had ranked higher, Mark Ingram? What makes you rank Mark Ingram higher than Kareem Hunt?
I think Mark Ingram is still the veteran there. I know they did draft Dobbins and they still have Gus Bus, but he was very productive with his touches. As long as he stays healthy, I think he can still be productive with his touches there, especially with Lamar Jackson and what he can do.
And Thom and I, neither of us had Mark Ingram ranked at all. And I think if Mark Ingram were playing 16 games, I mean, let's not forget, this guy finishes at RB4 or 5, and maybe, John, maybe you can look that up. But he finished super high. It was no later than the 6th spot. But he was the lead dog for Baltimore all year. I don't think that's going to happen this year. And there's already been indication, Thom, coming out of Baltimore that they're not sure if he's the lead back.
No, he's, 31 now, so he's on the other side of 30, so they're going to give the ball to Dobbins a lot this year, coming down the stretch. So he'll be good early, but you'll see him decline as the year goes along.
Yeah, so for me, it's like Kareem Hunt at 24. I would have liked to have him higher, but frankly, everybody above him on this list, guys, is a workhorse back pretty much, or should shoulder most of the load. So that's kind of why I had him at 24. And Thom, I don't know if you're on the same page there.
Oh yeah, if he was the number one back in Cleveland, I'd have him higher this year. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So, John, where do you have him? Is he right on the cusp?
He's right on the cusp. I probably shouldn't rank Carson as high as I did, but until I hear that he's not the starting back, I still gotta.
Yeah, you weren't out of line on Carson.
Mark Ingram finished RB11 in PPR points.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, I thought he finished a lot higher than that.
He did miss the last game, which was them resting their players, and then he did finish 13th in the rushing yards at 1,013. But this is what I mean by
his touchdown count was really high, though.
15.
And I don't think he's going to see that this year.
I think he'll still see it. Here's the thing.
And Lamar, and not to interrupt you, but Lamar Jackson's touchdown count was pretty low considering what he does. And I think those things are going to even out a lot more this year.
So Mark Ingram had 202 attempts last year for 1,018 yards, 5-yard average for 10 rushing touchdowns, and then he had 26 receptions on 29 targets, which did not catch 3 of his targets. That's really good. 247 receiving yards and 5 TDs. So very productive with his touches, like I said, averaging 16.2 fantasy points per game.
I just think him getting pushed by the other guys this year, specifically J.K. Dobbins, I think the fact that he doesn't catch a lot of passes, and I think the fact that he's 31 years old and he's a running back, that kept him off my top 24. Thom, sounds like you're on a similar page there. And John, you've got Mark Ingram ranked in the top 24. We don't. So we got him out of the way because we did need to talk about Mark Ingram. But Kareem Hunt, again, I'm not gonna beat a dead horse here. When he played with Nick Chubb, he averaged the same amount of points per game as Nick Chubb. So he's going to be a factor this year. And this team is going to run the ball. That's what the coaching staff wants to do, and they're going to do it. Correct?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Lamar Jackson, if anybody watched any games last year, that guy can fake the ball so well, which it works out in favor.
We're talking about Cleveland now.
Oh,
sorry. We're talking Kareem Hunt. You got to listen now.
But no, Kareem Hunt is like literally right on the cusp for me.
Yeah.
So it's not, I mean, I still think he's an average double-digit fantasy points. I just wonder, depending what happens with the game script, what's going to possibly happen. If they're like behind a lot, it's going to be him. It's going to be Chubb.
I think Thom, he's more game script proof, if there is such a phrase, because he's going to catch the ball, and Chubb's going to get more carries. And when you're losing, the carries go down, right?
It's the thunder and lightning effect.
Yeah, definitely. It's like Ahmad Bradshaw and Brandon Jacobs back in the
Almost.
day. Almost. It could be better. It probably is better, frankly.
It could be, yeah. I think Bradshaw was below Hunt.
Right. All right, so moving on to the consensus number 23. It is David Montgomery. Although Thom and I did not rank him there. We had him a little higher than John. I had him at 21, and Thom, you had him at... I'm sorry, maybe you didn't have him ranked at all, Thom. You did not rank David Montgomery, my bad. It was John that ranked him at 23. So, again, we'll come from the same angle. You've got Raheem Mostert ahead of David Montgomery. What do you think is the difference maker there?
He doesn't catch the passes in the backfield. He's going to be that first two down back. He'll get like 900 yards, 1,000 yards, but passing game, I don't.
Do you think with Tariq Cohen there?
I think Cohen's going to get a lot of those. So.
All right, John, what do you think of David Montgomery?
I think the biggest worry for me with Montgomery is, depending who their starting quarterback is, you will face a stacked box quite a bit of time if you do not have some type of passing game here. He actually wasn't that bad in the receiving as a rookie. 25 receptions on 35 targets, 185 yards, 1 TD.
No, he was his yards per carry weren't great, but we've actually broken him down significantly in a prior episode a couple months back. David Montgomery, when you look at the efficiency of the quarterback position in Chicago, as well as if you look at the efficiency of the offensive line situation there, he did a lot with a little when you really look at it in a vacuum. And if they can improve that offensive line was dreadful.
And that's the upside I like, is possibly how bad their line was, their quarterback situation. So if they improve both of those, even a hair, he'll easily rush for 1,000 yards.
Plus, he's going to get the goal line work predominantly. So I see his floor as Jordan Howard in Chicago. And when you kind of probably rolling your eyes at that and groaning at that, but if you look back at those numbers, they weren't that bad. They were pretty good. And I think you could see similar numbers from David Montgomery this year. Just not exciting enough to me with the crappy team, the fact that they're probably going to play from behind a lot, and the fact that he will give up most of the passing work to Tariq Cohen. That's where his cap for me is at 22. But that's pretty good. That's RB2, so I'm happy with that. Thom, you had him a little bit outside of that.
Yeah, it was like 25, 26.
Right,
so.
yeah. Okay, so number 22, and I don't have it queued up right now, so pardon me, but it is Chris Carson. I had Chris Carson at 23. Thom, you had Chris Carson at 23. And John, you were higher. You had him at 19. Curiously ahead of David Johnson and Jonathan Taylor. Those are two names that stuck out to me, but I could see where you're coming from on this.
Taylor's a rookie, and I'm not saying he's not going to be good. It's just there's questions there. Split committee for a little bit, possibly for Taylor. But Carson, until I see something otherwise, either from training camp or they bench him, I mean, he's at 1,000 yards both years. Yes, he has fumble issues. We get that. He had seven fumbles last year, 4 lost fumbles. But he put up 1,230 rushing yards and 7 TDs, and he chimed in a couple of receiving touchdowns. So,
and you're projecting him on 16 games as the starter. I'm not. I'm projecting him on about 12 games as the starter.
I'm saying about 14 again. His average, basically. 14, 15.
So where do you have him at, Thom? In terms of, do you think he'll start all season? Do you think he'll share the workload? Or you've got him where I've got him, still in the top 24?
That hip injury is really scary right now. If he's healthy, he can be a top 15 back.
Right. Okay, cool. 21. This guy was the kingpin of the running back position not very long ago until Kenyon Drake stole his girlfriend, and that being David Johnson. And we're kind of all over the map on David Johnson here. I have David Johnson at number 18. Thom has David Johnson at number 21. And John, you have David Johnson at number 20. He is our consensus number 21. Again, we just talked about this, and this is what I get excited about with David Johnson. I don't care about Duke Johnson. I wanted to care about Duke Johnson, but every single year, every single team he's been on, he's nothing but a change of pace guy. That's what NFL teams see him as. Even though he's 210 pounds, even though he can catch the ball, even though he can run efficiently, that's all that teams see him as, and it's been proven year after year. So I'm not worried about him. With that being said, he's going to catch 30 balls at least. So that's going to limit David Johnson's upside. I think David Johnson catches 30 as well as a floor. What I like about David Johnson is that this team had almost 2,000-yard running backs last year, And the carries for the team were well over 400. I don't think David Johnson takes that entire workload, but there's a lot of work to be had there. And based on workload alone, that's why I had him at 18. What are you thinking about David Johnson, John?
David Johnson, the thing is, I'm not saying he needs 300 carries, but 2019 was pretty much a wash for him, only 94 attempts, and then losing his job to Drake or being benched for Drake. And then 2017 only had 11 attempts because of his injury, only played one game. But 2018, 258 attempts, 940 yards, 7 touchdowns. I'm seeing the ballpark range about 1,000, 1,100 yards. Possibly could be more with upside. But David Johnson, I was salty at first because I was an owner last year, but I think he's grown on me more. That line still has some issues, but they also have Deshaun Watson. So
he averaged over 20 points in the first 6 games last year, though. Again, his efficiency wasn't good, but he's not that far removed from really good fantasy finishes.
Yeah, and that was on limited attempts too. He never had 18 was his highest in those first few weeks as well. So I think if he's getting anywhere from 15 to 20 carries and then like 3 to 5 receptions a game, he should be fine. I don't even think he needs 5 receptions, 3 receptions. They're going to get him involved in the passing game here more.
Yeah, and I sit there and I say probably 30 receptions, but I could see 2 receptions a game easily. But I could see 3 a game too, and Thom kind of alluded to that being a pretty good number by the end of the season. Thom, what do you stand on him?
I don't trust him. His yards per carry last 3 years have been under 4. It was like 2.1, 3.6, and 3.7 the last 3 years. And this line's not much better than Arizona's.
True story.
So I don't see him, even if he gets 300 carries, that's going to be right around 900 yards, but I don't see him getting 300 carries on that offense.
Okay, good points. Good points by all. All right, number 20, guys. Next on the list. John, you did your best to bury this guy, but Thom and I came through in the clutch for Devin Singletary, who is our number 20 consensus-ranked running back. Thom, I think you had Singletary the highest. You had him at 16. I had him at 22, and John, you had him all the way down in the basement at 24. I'll kind of give my concerns, and John, I'll pass it to you, and Thom, you can give Mr. Singletary some love to put a bow on it. But with Singletary, my concerns are these. They gave Frank Gore an awful lot more work than I think he should have got last year. And Frank Gore basically ran, hit a jersey, and went immediately down. I mean, the guy was not good, and they still gave him a lot of work. So that concerns me a little bit with how much they like Singletary. And Zach Moss they did sign, although I don't think Zach Moss is nearly as talented as Singletary, at least with his vision and his ability to just get yards. Devin Singletary has that. Devin Singletary reminds me a lot of Chris Carson in a lot of ways, but I think he's a better player than Carson. So the other concern I have is that while this team does run the ball a lot, so does Josh Allen, and I think Josh Allen's going to vulture runs and vulture touchdowns from Singletary. With that being said, I still had him ranked in the top 24 at 22, so I think there's a lot of value there, and I think that's his floor. I think he has the upside to be a lot better than that, John.
So Singletary, I know last year he lost a lot of rushing touchdowns to Allen. For me, Singletary, one of the biggest things that drove for me down is just his attempts. It's not a lot. I'm not saying Zach Moss going to tie in a lot. It could be a 70-30 here. It could be an 80-20. But I got to see a little bit of proof. And the other thing that scared me off was the second hardest schedule for a running back this year. That's what scared me more than anything because I'm not saying it's the Pats defense at all. It's just the thing is when you see that, it kind of does steer you in the other way. And then Singletary, when you start looking at his stats, the team just figured it out. Like week 11, they're like, hey, we're going to give this kid double-digit attempts. That's when he started producing. But he had a hard schedule as well in those last few weeks. But
and we'll see how hard that schedule really is. Again, you've got guys that have opted out with COVID. We just talked about the Patriots. They play them twice, obviously. But they don't have Hightower. And they don't have, they lost some players to Miami. Van Noy went, this is not the same defense. And this defense has a measurably tougher schedule than they did last year. The difference is measurable and significantly measurable. So, like Thomas said, you kind of take that stuff with a grain of salt. Schedule, again, for me, strength of schedule, guys, is when I got 2 guys that are like dead next to each other. So I have Montgomery and Singletary right next to each other in the rankings. I might go with whoever has the better schedule. You know what I mean? So, Tom, what do you like about Singletary?
He just reminds me of Shady McCoy out there.
I
Same type of
agree.
guy. He's
Yeah.
explosive on the field. His 40 is not that fast, but he
Not
plays
the
faster.
fastest, not
but
the
he
biggest.
plays faster than that.
And he plays bigger than that,
And he only
too.
played 12 games last year, so if you bring it up to 16, he was like 1,100 yards. So, I mean...
Great point. Yeah,
I
like Singletary this year. I really do. And I think once Buffalo finds out how not that great Zach Moss is, that's going to be an even bigger benefit to Singletary. So I like him this year. All right, number 19, consensus. This one was interesting, and I even think I probably had him ranked lower than I should have. If you ask me what my rankings are in a week, he would probably be ahead of the James Connors and the David Johnsons of the world. But it is Jonathan Taylor. I had Jonathan Taylor ranked at 20. Tom, you had him ranked just one spot higher at 19. And John, you had him ranked at 22. So I'm going to ask you the question first. Why so low for Jonathan Taylor? And he's not significantly lower than Tom and I have him, but I would expected him to be above like a Mark Ingram, David Johnson, Chris Carson for
think
you.
From what Frank Wright is saying, he said that basically he's going to use the hot hands. I mean, obviously Mac's the starter, and then he's going to play the hot hand approach.
So Frank Reich says that, okay?
Yep.
Let me ask you a question. Who do you think the hot hand's going to be?
I think the hot hand's going to be Jonathan
Just
Taylor,
saying,
but it does limit his upside for at least 3 to 5 games, possibly.
John, let me tell you guys this right now. Are you guys ready for this? And I know you don't agree with me, and that's fine. I will let Jonathan Taylor do the talking for me. He is a Barkley Elliott level talent.
Oh, I agree.
He is.
Until Mac will get phased out, but not right at first. That's what his numbers would be so much higher, like my projections for him, than what if Mac wasn't there at all.
I don't want to disrespect Marlon Mack, but I am not factoring him in. Maybe week 1. I look at this situation, guys, the more and more I think about it, and I love Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but if you switch those guys' teams, honestly, you're probably getting 50 more points out of Jonathan Taylor. He's that good. If it's me, and you're asking me to predict what I think is going to happen, which you are if you're listening, second half of week 1 is when Jonathan Taylor takes this job. I firmly believe that right now. Tom, where do you stand?
No, I have him like week 4 or 5 before it takes over completely. Wright does like Marlon Mack on the field. He can trust him a little bit. He's going to get the carries early, but by the end of the year, it's Jonathan Taylor's team.
John, when do you think it happens?
I think by week 3 or 4.
All right.
I'd rather see week 3 than. I mean, I'm high on.
I'd rather see week
I'm high
1.
on Taylor, but you know what I'm saying.
But you said yourself, Tom, you got the 9th pick in our keeper league. And this is after 4 keepers, and you'd love to have Jonathan Taylor.
I already have 3 running backs. He's on the board. I'm taking him there.
But he's also thinking of the future. This kid's going to be fantastic after this year.
I think he's
be
the best back
fantastic
in the
this
draft.
Yeah, he'll be fantastic this year.
You know what? As much as I talk about Helaire, I totally agree with you, Tom. He is head and shoulders the best running back in this draft.
He shouldn't even gone second round.
No. Well, he was really early second round, but yes, I agree with you. Okay, next on the list, we're going up. We're moving right on up the rankings here, folks, and we're at number 18. This one's going to be a little polarizing. I had this player at number 19. Tom, I'm not sure you had him ranked. No, I don't think you had him ranked. You really dissed this guy pretty bad. And Tom, you had him ranked at 17, I believe. Yep. And that's James Conner. You hate James Conner.
I don't trust the injuries are a factor with him.
Tell us one last time your absolute hatred for James Conner.
He just doesn't play when it counts the most down the playoffs. He's not a factor down the end of the year. He starts off good and he fades real quick the last 2 years.
Have we seen the best of him, John? Or
no? I think he's gonna kind of return back to his 2018 form. Maybe not that great of a year, but it's a good possibility he could if he stays healthy.
Okay.
He's been training his butt off this year.
Yeah, I like what McFarland brings to the table, but I ranked him where I ranked him because I just think he will be the lead dog on this team. I just believe that. I don't think that McFarland's going to swoop in this year. I don't think it's that wide open. Injuries are a concern, but if James Conner's healthy all year, he's going to have a really good season. Make no mistake about it.
And let's not forget his season last year. I mean, he stacked box after stacked box. No Big Ben. Big Ben being back.
The worst case scenario.
Yeah, Connor should have a great season with Big Ben back. I mean,
in the year before, they literally tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Hey, Lev Bell didn't show up. We need you out there."
Yeah.
And he did a great job. But again, he's got to be healthy. And I'm going to assume that he is until he's not, which is a definite possibility. But none of us are all that excited about Connor. He's just there. And I wouldn't have him ranked nearly where I have him if I didn't know what to expect from Pittsburgh running backs, right, guys? You're going to get volume out of these guys, whomever the starting running back is.
It's been there for 50 years pretty much.
Right. I think we broke down a stat in one of our previous shows about how many 1,000-yard rushers this team has had, and it's ridiculous.
Oh, it is ridiculous.
Yeah. So anyway, moving on. Next on the list, we're starting to get into the good guys here, the really big names, and the first of which kind of really became a big name last year. And this year he's assumed to be the lead dog for the LA Chargers, and that's Austin Eckler. I had Austin Eckler at, where did I have Austin? I had him all the way up at 13, guys. You did not agree with me. John, you had him at 16, and Tom, you had him all the way down at 22. So what's your thoughts there?
I don't think he's the lead running back again. It's Kelly.
I like Kelly a lot.
I think he's going to be the first two downs. I think Eckler's going to be like a third down type running back on that team.
I think he's going to catch enough passes, John, where he's going to have significant value, and I think they like him enough to give him 150 plus carries. So if he's catching 60 to 80 balls and he's getting 150 carries, he should have a solid season for you. But he will not be top 10 this year, I don't think.
I don't think so either. It's the highest he's ever gotten for attempts is 132, which was last year. So like you said, 100, 150 range, keep him in there, and then
I have him at 13, and I think it's because. And these are PPR ranks, too, keep in mind. I think based on his pass catching ability, that's where he'll land. But Tyrod Taylor's a concern, too.
But target-wise, do you also see... I see his targets going down significantly with Phillip Rivers now with Indy and Tyrod at the helm. But I don't
know if I'm ready to say significantly. I think the good thing is that Kelly and Jackson aren't going to catch passes. This guy's, without question, the primary pass-catching back. And we can't just assume that Tyrod Taylor is going to bring the same exact thing that he brought to the table that he had in Buffalo. This team is going to want to run a certain style offense. They paid Austin Eckler, right, guys? So they obviously want to use him. So that's why I think I have him safely at lucky number 13. You guys aren't as high, though, which is fine. It's fine. I could be wrong.
We could all be wrong. You can finish top 3 for all we know.
And Austin Eckler, trust me, he is an enigma this year. He's not a guy that I'm chasing. He's not on my must-have list. He's not, when you do your Fantasy Pros rankings and you put target, he's not a target for me. And it's because that there are a lot of question marks surrounding him. A guy that I don't think there's as many question marks surrounding is Le'Veon Bell, who lands in at our number 16 spot. I had Le'Veon Bell right below Austin Eckler at 14, and you guys both had him at 18. So just throw some names here. John, Austin Eckler, you had ahead of Le'Veon Bell. I think Bell gets a full workload. I don't think Eckler does. Tom, you had Singletary ahead of Bell. So what concerns you guys about Lev Bell this year to the degree where you've got him down at 18?
They've gotten the people for the offensive line. The question is, there's chemistry there, and can Sam Darnold take some of that pressure off of Bell by actually completing some good accurate throws and not seeing ghosts? So the thing is, if this offense can improve even slightly, Lev Bell can be better. But if not, then we go back to the last year. It was efficient, but horrible year for Lev Bell career-wise.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to see how this offensive line's chemistry is.
I see 250 carries, 80 targets, and a really good season for Lev Bell. Do you have similar concerns as John, Tom, with Bell?
Yeah. Sam Darnold is the key to this team. If he doesn't progress from year 3 to year 4, you're not going to see much out of him. So
could be Joe Flacco. Is Joe Flacco in there?
Yeah, he's healthy right now. So.
Right? Yeah. And we'll see. All right, Le'Veon Bell, I think he's got a lot of upside this year. So let me ask you guys this question. How high do you think Le'Veon Bell could finish?
He could be a top 10 back.
Top 10.
He lost like 15 pounds, they said, so
he's trying to slim down to about 205, 210 is what I read.
That's a little lower than I would like.
He played at 2.25 last year.
Yeah, that's one of the good things about Bell is he's got size. I don't think I'd want him down at 205. That would
215 would be perfect.
Yeah, for a guy that's hovering. He's 28, I think, so he's not young anymore. So don't lose too much weight there, Le'Veon Bell. So next on the list is a guy I think we all probably would agree finished higher than we would care for him to finish, and that's Aaron Jones. Thom and I were right in line with Aaron Jones. We both had him at 17. John, you had him at 15. Again, why Aaron Jones higher than Le'Veon Bell than Austin Eckler?
I mean, he has been efficient.
Other than the fact he finished, I think, the number 2 or 3 running back last year.
That's kind of one reason why. I mean, he did finish one of the top running backs last year, and that's now I don't know what this whole pandemic's going to do to rookies and if they're going to get a shot. It's a matter of time, but he's going to lose. He's going to lose touch to Jamal Williams. Mm-hmm. They love him in the pass game. They love his pass protection, like I said. And Dillon could be one that could carve out a role either middle of the season or late in the season or even at the beginning. But with the whole pandemic, it's hard to get a good read on these guys. But Aaron Jones, no matter what, I ranked him lower. Not lower than you guys, but because of regression, there's no way he puts up that many touchdowns.
So that's the bigger concern for me, Thom. Isn't necessarily Jamal Williams or A.J. Dillon. Those guys don't concern me too much in terms of taking a huge workload away from Aaron Jones. It's the fact that he was so ridiculously efficient last year. It's the fact that he was so high in a touchdown count last year. And it's the fact that every time Jamal Williams and Devontae Adams were on the field, his production went down.
Oh, yeah. Then you get Lazard coming in this year. He's going to regress, but he's going to be the number 1 back for a while at least.
I agree.
Well, let's not forget Devontae Adams missed 3 games too, so that also helped Aaron Jones out.
Yeah. And again, when you look, you can see it when you look at the numbers when Adams isn't out there. Those were literally Jones's best games.
The only thing going for Jones in his favor right now is Funchess opting out. They don't use the tight end a lot there. I mean, he could get some pass work.
I think that helps Lazard. I think he'll be fine, but you're not going to see him top 5 running back this year. I just don't think
16
so.
rushing touchdowns, no way.
That's not going to happen.
No.
It's not going to happen. And I think you got to assume that even though I don't think Dillon's going to take much from him, what he will take is the touchdowns.
Right? Oh, yeah, the goal line. He's a bigger back, so.
Right, he's Derrick Henry's size. He's a 250-pound, 240-pound back. All right, next up, guys, is, he's a fella that was a staple of the L.A. Rams, and this year will be flying high with the Eagles, and that is Todd Gurley. I've got Todd Gurley ranked at 15. Thom, you've got Todd Gurley ranked at 15. And, John, you're slightly higher with Todd Gurley at 12. I probably understand why, but talk to us about why you've got him ranked higher.
I think Todd Gurley, this is the type of offense he needed to be in. I'm not saying the Rams wasn't, but with his whole knee thing and Rams got scared of it, and their line's not that great. I'm not saying Atlanta's line's even better than the Rams, but you're talking about a team that passes the ball 600 attempts a game. They're going to get him involved in this passing game, and he's got no competition at all. None there. So he will,
literally, I think it's Quadriolis, and
Yeah.
I don't even know if he's on the team anymore.
Brian Hill.
Is he still there?
I don't think he's there.
We saw Brian Hill in his 2 yards of carry.
Yeah, but he has zero competition here. If he stays healthy, and he easily can see 20 to 25 touches a game, if not more. This team, no matter what, he'll be utilized, and I think he's going to play a lot. And I think he's going to return to form, not like an MVP year, but he will definitely do some work.
Todd Gurley I had at 15. And Thom, I don't know if you agree with this, but when I looked at him, I saw a guy that I could easily have ranked higher than that. I could have him ahead of Lev Bell, Austin Eckler, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, all of those guys. Is that kind of where you're at?
Oh, yeah, if that knee is 100%, he's could be a top 5 back easily again. They're in a high-power offense. Their defense is weak, so they're going to be on the field a lot. There's going to be a lot of shootouts with that team, so...
John?
Yeah. I mean, Todd Gurley, his career average is 4.3. The Rams, he only played 12 games, played 15 games, but started 12. I mean, he basically had 857 rushing yards. He still had 223 attempts. But I think he's going to see more targets out of this backfield, I think, than he did with the Rams. Or about the same, actually. He saw about anywhere from 50 to 80 targets with the Rams.
All right, guys. Next on the list is a tie, if you can imagine that. It is Nick Chubb and Melvin Gordon. Nick Chubb, I had it a little bit lower than you guys at, hold my beer. I had Nick Chubb all the way down at 16, but you guys had him both at 11. So let's talk about Nick Chubb, John. My big thing for him, and the reason I had him so low, just to defend myself here, is Kareem Hunt. It's as simple as that. you're not going to see the Nick Chubb that you saw the first half of the season last year. You're going to see the Nick Chubb that you saw during the second half of the season. And while I think he'll have a better season than Kareem Hunt, I don't think it's by a whole heck of a lot. John?
It's I mean, this, like I said before, this is a team that you could possibly see if 1,000-yard running backs on the same team. I mean, he still sees a heftier workload before Kareem Hunt, but still sees about 15 carries a game. But I think that's going to go up. Like I was saying, I still think they're going to. I think it's going to be a timeshare here for both of them.
I look at this, and we'll talk about Melvin Gordon. We might as well. I look at this as the same exact situation as Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay. People are selling Phillip Lindsay short, and that's a bad idea. I think Phillip Lindsay is a steal right now.
He is. His value, he's rushed for 1,000 yards 2 years in a row.
He's going to get work, and let's not forget, Melvin Gordon was great with the Chargers, but he always allowed another guy like a Danny Woodhead or an Austin Eckler to get similar work to what I think Phillip Lindsay is going to get this year. And it's going to hurt Melvin Gordon. And I don't think this team is as high-flying as the Chargers were in those years. So I think Gordon will have a good year. I just think Phillip Lindsay's going to cap his upside, much like Nick Chubb's upside will be capped by Kareem Hunt. Tom, do you agree with that?
I think Gordon and Chubb could 1,000-yard backs this year.
Oh, definitely. I think that's implied. But 1,000-yard backs today isn't what it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. You have to do more than that. And I think Gordon will do that, but I don't know if he gets 1,500, and I don't know if he catches a ton of passes. I think Lindsay's
I think the timeshare
is
going to hurt his catching ability. Plus, he doesn't have Rivers anymore. We don't know what Locke does with the running backs.
And Rivers overthrew the running backs. We know that. So, John, what about you on Gordon?
Gordon, I don't even think I had him ranked. I just noticed.
Yeah, you killed Gordon.
Gordon scares me ever since he didn't have a horrible season last year, but I just don't see Denver. How, like you said, how can you disrespect Phillip Lindsay? And I don't think the organization is going to do that. I know they signed Melvin Gordon, but I think they wanted somebody that can ground and pound it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they also have Lindsay. I think it's going to be a split committee here. I'm thinking like 60, like probably 55-45.
I think Gordon gets 1,300 yards. I think he gets about 500 yards receiving. So he's going to have a good year, and I think he's going to be I really do think he finishes as a top 10 back because they're going to run the ball so much on that team. But I think his upside is going to be significantly capped by Lindsay. And I like Lindsay a lot.
I like Lindsay a lot, too.
I'd rather have Lindsay at his ADP, frankly. All right, next on the list.
I don't even like Drake.
You don't like the Drake?
I hate the Drake.
I love the Drake.
How could you not like the Drake?
Who's the Drake?
Who's the Drake?
The Drake is good.
We like the Drake, guys. We don't love the Drake, it seems. We don't hate the Drake, but we do like the Drake, and he finished in at the number 12 running back spot for us. I had Kenyon Drake ranked number 10 overall. Tom, you had him at number 14, and John, you had him at 13, all very respectable rankings. I guess the big question here is we've never seen Kenyon Drake carry the workload for an entire season. John, will he do that this year? Do you think that Chase Edmonds could take that role, or even Eno Benjamin, or carve into it?
I think they're going to carve into it a little bit. You just don't go out and draft another running back for fun, you know. So I think they have a plan for Benjamin.
Yeah, but I think was he 5th round, somewhere around there.
Yeah, he wasn't a high pick.
He wasn't a high
just
pick.
to get a body in that
He's more.
backfield.
I think Benjamin's going to be more for depth, but barring an injury, he could play more. But Edmonds is the guy to watch because when he started last year, when David Johnson was hurt, before they got Drake, he actually did very well. So
he did, yeah. He had 1 or 2 games.
He played the Giants, so that doesn't count.
Well, this is true too. John remembers that. Tom remembers that vividly.
But I think they're going to use both, and they want. Remember, they got to think about the whole season. So that's what scares me is when you look at Drake as his attempts. He's never had more than 170. Can he pass that?
So
is the question.
I'll counterpoint that, and I'll explain why I have Drake at 10. He's never done it because he's never been given the chance to do it. And the second he got on this team and they gave him a chance, he crushed it. And he did not look back. This team loves him. He loves them. They kicked David Johnson to the curb for this guy, who was a guy that they paid as a franchise player. That's what they did with David Johnson. And they divorced him so they could go have a fling with Kenyon Drake. And that fling, I think, Tom, is going to last at least through this season.
Yeah, but I think they're going to be a passing team first, so I think Murray's the key. So if they're going to run the ball more, then Drake's going to be better. But I think they're pass first team. So.
I think they'll run the ball plenty, and I think Kenyon Drake, John, can catch passes as well. We've seen him do that. So for me, I think I have him higher than the Nick Chubbs of the world. I even have him higher than Leonard Fournette and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's, I think, going to be a focal point of that offense. Tom, you don't think so necessarily? John, you sound like you're somewhere in the middle.
I'm somewhere in the middle.
At the end of the day, we have this guy ranked at lowest at 14, so Kenyon Drake should have a fine year in 2020, unless he gets hurt. But I don't see him losing ground to Edmonds or especially, Benjamin. I just don't see that happening. They love this guy in Arizona. Number 11 consensus rank is Clyde Edwards-Helaire, as I just mentioned. Or as we call him around here,
The Fresh Prince.
The French Prince.
The Fresh
Is that
Prince of
LaVisca Chanel?
Hilaire.
Is he the French Prince? No, the French Prince is Tom Martell. Yes, we do call him the Fresh Prince of a town called El Air. Or Bel Air. But we call him the Fresh Prince of El Air because it's funny to us, at least. But yeah, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, man, the undisputed lead dog, presumably. So I guess it is kind of disputed, but I think we can all agree it's pretty likely that Clyde Edwards-Helaire will be the running back for the most high-powered offense ever in Kansas City. And that's a pretty sweet gig to have, the top dog in that backfield. The number one round pick, the first round pick, their number one pick overall was Kansas City's Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I love this guy. And I think it's difficult to sit here and rank him at 11 when he's never played a snap in the NFL, but it's just situation. I actually had him at 12. John, you had him at 10, and Tom, you had him at 13. It's the situation, right, guys?
It's completely the situation. Damian Williams is out. Darwin Thompson could probably be the change of pace back or Darrell Williams, but Hilaire is in a great spot to smash and probably the highest powered offense in the league. He can catch, he can run, he can do it all. It's going to be interesting to see what he does overall this year. If he does anything Kareem Hunt did, then game over.
Could he be top 5 in PPR, Tom?
I don't know. He's an enigma. This offense is just too good. They have too many weapons. It could be a quick slant a hill. He goes 75 yards. He's off the field. So,
And with Damian Williams gone, it's just wheels up. I could see it happening for sure. But there's a lot of good running backs this year. The next one on the list is kind of underrated. We've got him at 10, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire is definitely a guy that can finish in the top 5. Maybe even 1 overall. I don't think so. But on that team, like Tom said, the sky is literally the limit in Kansas City. But number 10 is, after all, Leonard Fournette. I have Leonard Fournette at 11. Tom, you have Leonard Fournette at 10. And John, you had him a little bit lower
14.
At 14, which surprises me because you like Fournette this year. I just don't understand how you can't like a guy that is going to get all the passing work. Chris Thompson, sorry, not interested. Ain't happening. He's going to get all the passing work out of the backfield. He's going to get all the rushing work out of the backfield. And he's going to see major positive regression in terms of the goal line work that he's going to get. And more importantly, the touchdowns. He's going to see huge positive regression there. And he's in a contract year. And they're not going to re-sign him. So they're going to work him into the ground. And he's going to try to earn that next paycheck. Everything's perfect for Fournette this year, John.
I think maybe I'm bought into much of the Chris Thompson. Only reason I say that is Gruden played with him in Washington. I think he has a soft spot. It could just be a, like you said, a signing just for, I don't know, he felt bad.
Would you like to look up what Chris Thompson has done in his career? Jack and squat. And Jack left town.
Stretch 3 years ago.
Chris Thompson's a nobody. He's more of a nobody than Duke Johnson. Chris Thompson, Tom, is not going to be a factor.
Oh, no. I love Fournette this year. I want to rank him even higher than I did, but it's just too hard to put him any higher than 10.
Yeah. And that's the thing. This offense is going to be probably playing from behind an awful lot. So that's really, to me, the only concern with him. And obviously offensive line could improve dramatically. But I love Leonard Fournette this year, and he's a steal at his ADP as well. Like, people are sleeping on Leonard Fournette, and that's going to bite you in the butt if you let this guy pass you at, what is he, a 4th round ADP, 3rd round ADP?
I can check that real quick.
If you wouldn't mind. I mean, he's just that much of a value, and you're going to get a top 10 running back out of this guy. There's no way he's getting, 3-4 touchdowns this year. That's not happening.
ADP of 35, and he has the 6th easiest schedule.
And that. Enough said, right, guys?
Yeah.
All right, next on the list, we won't talk too much about him because we already did gush over him earlier on, but that's Josh Jacobs. I had him at 9. John, you had him at 9. And Tom, you had him up at 7. You had him ahead of Mixon, so you love Josh Jacobs.
I love Josh Jacobs this year. I think their offense better than what people think it's going to be up there. David Carr is going to be really good this year.
Derek Carr. I know you're a Giants fan, but you got to stop calling him David Carr because that's bad juju. David Carr was trash. He was the number 1 overall pick, though, wasn't he?
2002.
Houston Texans.
See, right off the top of his head. I love Josh Jacobs, too. I don't know if I'd have him ahead of Mixon, but again, we kind of compared these guys earlier. If Mixon, again, doesn't get the workload that he probably should in Cincinnati this year, I could definitely see Jacobs finishing ahead of him. And when you add a dynamic playmaker like Henry Ruggs to the equation, even if David or Derek Carr are your quarterback, you got to watch out for that guy, and he's going to open things up, I would think, John, for other players on the team, primarily Josh Jacobs. That's a real weapon that the Raiders have now that other teams have to pay attention to. This is not Tyrell Williams, your best receiver. This is not that scenario.
No, he's got the weapons around him to help him succeed. No, last year the biggest thing that kind of
And Brian Edwards too.
Yeah, the biggest thing that kind of kept Jacobs down was that nagging shoulder injury.
Yeah.
Basically, a couple games he missed a quarter, second quarter came out, and then he missed. He only played 13 games, but put up 1,150 rushing yards on 242 attempts.
And there were games that were so frustrating to watch as a Jacobs fan because you're like, why are you not using this guy? And you're still in the game. Like, it was just so frustrating.
I think they're starting to figure it out, but adding the other weapons should help Jacobs out a lot more. Jacobs could, if he even sees 50 receptions, he could easily pop into the top 5, if not the top 3.
Yep. This is Is this who I think it is? Next up, you remember this band, Tom?
Rembrandt? No.
No.
The
Rembrandt.
Proclaimers.
How dare you?
The Proclaimers.
This is the Proclaimers. This is 500 miles, and that could be how far Miles Sanders runs this year. It could be a lot more than that. Miles Sanders is our consensus number 8. I just love this kid this year. I had him ranked at 8. John, you had him ranked at 6, so you had him higher than me. Tom, you had him ranked at 9. We all like this guy. At the end of the day, the naysayers will sit here and tell you that in a Doug Peterson offense, you don't see a workhorse back. That's because Doug Peterson never employed a workhorse back. He hasn't had a workhorse back playing for the Philadelphia Eagles until he got Miles Sanders. He is just that. He's going to catch a lot of balls. He's going to rush for a lot of yards, and he's going to rush for a lot of touchdowns. And Boston Scott will get mixed in. But Boston Scott will not. This is like trying to cover the surface of the sun with a quilt. It's not going to happen. Miles Sanders is going to burn right through Boston Scott, and he's going to have a huge year this year. Another guy, like we talked about, that could finish, in my view, as a top 5 running back this year. Tom?
Oh, I agree. Their offense it's his offense. Him and Ertz are the 2 main focal points of the whole team.
That's the other thing. They don't have any receivers. We were just talking about it before we started the show. Like, you're like, well, I think Rieger, and then, Greg Ward could be the number 1. Well, by God, to quote good old JR, if that's the case, I'm all in on Miles Sanders.
And I think that's why one reason I ranked Sanders a little higher. I saw his stats, and let's not forget that he was in a little timeshare at the beginning with Jordan Howard. And it clicked for Philly once they figured out that, hey, we give this kid some more carries, he's going to actually make good use of them. I mean, he averaged 4.6 yards a carry, only had 3 rushing touchdowns, but let's not forget, he played all 16 games, but if you look at his week 1 through week 8, he wasn't given that many attempts. He was only given 179 total attempts, and he had 818 rushing yards. Now give this kid 250 attempts, 260. Let's even ballpark low. He's still going to get you 12 or 1,300 yards and chime in. He had 50 receptions for 509 yards, and he's just going to get more. I mean, honestly, he exploded for targets from week 12 on with 5 or more. So if he had that all year round, you're talking 85 targets. This kid is just going to go off.
So he will run for miles and miles.
Miles and miles and catch for miles and miles.
And miles and miles.
Miles and
more.
miles.
All right, we're all on the same page with Miles Sanders, and you know we love a guy when we give him theme music. So congratulations, Miles Sanders, you've officially made the big time. You have theme music from the Blue Collar Ballers. Next on the list, I got another guy we all like. We all like all these guys at this point, but Joe Mixon is our consensus number 7. John, you have Joe Mixon right at number 7. John, you have him. Tom, you have him slightly lower at number 8, and I have him all the way up at 6. I ranked him ahead of Derrick Henry, Miles Sanders, and more. Again, with Joe Mixon, to me, guys, we've seen what this guy's capable of. If he gets a workload that is a true workhorse workload, which he has not gotten yet, he has RB1 overall upside if that's the case. The problem is, and the reason I have him at 6 and not higher than that, is I just don't know if it's going to be the case with the Cincinnati Bungles, who managed to bungle every good situation that they have. But does that get offset this year, Tom, by Joe Burrow?
Yeah, if he does the Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the offense, he could be top 3 running back. But we don't know what Burrow is going to bring to the offense this year.
Yeah, for sure.
I think Burrow is going to surprise people this year, but he's not going to surprise you to the point that he's going to throw up a Mahomes or Lamar Jackson season. I think he'll manage enough to take pressure off of the running game, as well as, you get AJ Green back. You get some key components back here. Tyler Boyd's still there, captain consistent. John Ross. This team oozes talent.
You just called John Ross captain consistent?
No, Tyler Boyd.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So I think that Mixon has a safe chance to easily get 1,000 yards, again, 1,100 yards. And I think that he's, even with how bad his team was last year, he averaged 4.1 for a carry. That's good. But the question is going to be that I don't have him ranked any higher is because the targets. If he gets more targets, he could definitely thrive in this offense. And I think he will do better this year than he has in the past. And I think that's going to be because of Joe Burrow opening up that passing game, helping them out.
It's a possibility. Unless Joe Burrow busts, I think it's good news for... it's possible.
It's possible. It is possible.
But unless that happens, I think it's good news for Joe Mixon because they have more than one dimension to their offense. And that'll be a good thing for him. But we all like Joe Mixon, right, fellas?
Yes.
All right. Number 6. I did not have this man at number 6. I had him down at number 7. That's Derrick Henry. John, you had him at 8, which to me, I get it. These guys are all very close here, but I think you're just being bitter. And then,
so you read into that one.
Tom, you saved the day for Derrick Henry, putting him at number 4. So you like him a lot. What makes you put him ahead of Alvin Kamara and Dalvin Cook?
I think he can get 2,000 yards rushing this year. They're going to run first team, and he's, I think, the best pure running back in the NFL by far.
So he'll be CJ 2K. Or
Jamal Lewis.
Okay.
2003.
I like where you're going. With that. Some of our millennial listeners might not catch that one, but what's after millennials? I don't know. We'll transition.
I can't think of the
We'll transition.
A big reason.
And no offense to any millennials.
Yeah, a big reason I'm down on Henry. He's never been used a lot in the passing game. His teen receptions, like 18 last year, 15 the year before, 11, 13. I think that teams are going to watch the footage on the Kansas City game and see how they stop Derrick Henry and kind of use that scheme. I'm not saying he's going to put up 500 rushing yards, but I think they're going to copycat what Kansas City did. And Fitzpatrick is not Fitzpatrick. I'm sorry. Tannehill. Thank you. Ryan Tannehill is not talented enough to get this team going in the passing game. Like you said, he can't supply more than one person at a time. And I think Henry's going to be the one who pays for it. And I just think deep down, I think Henry can get like 1,200 yards. But
listen, you think 1,200. I think that's a little low. Tom, you think 2,000. I cap him at 1,500, and I'll tell you why. and I might alarm some of you guys when I say this. I know they made it to the AFC Championship, but spoiler alert. This is a spoiler, right? The Tennessee Titans are going to suck in 2020. Ryan Tannehill's going to suck in 2020. This will not even be a 500 team in 2020. And the main guy to suffer from that is going to be Derrick Henry. However, let's not forget, I have him ranked 7th. So you're still looking at 1,500 yards from Derrick Henry because he has such an immense workload. Because he is truly the focal point of that offense. But we saw what happened, guys, in that very AFC Championship game when they started getting beat down by Pat Mahomes in his undeniable Kavorka. Derrick Henry was not the man anymore. And I think that's going to happen a lot this year. I could be wrong.
But they play Gardner Minshew twice a year. They
do.
Phillip Rivers twice a year.
They do.
So, I mean, they're not playing Mahomes twice a year. So, I mean.
But remember, we said the same thing about Jacksonville when they made it to the AFC Championship. I see this as the same scenario. It's going to be bad for Tennessee this year. I could be wrong.
And let's not forget, Indy did not have Jonathan Taylor last year, so Tennessee's got to face Jonathan Taylor.
It's going to be interesting for Tennessee this year.
I agree with you on that take.
It is not by any means, guys, because Derrick Henry isn't good enough. Don't hear what I'm not saying. I love Derrick Henry as a player. The guy is a freak. I mean, he's a 250-pound back that has like a 4.3, 4.40.
Yeah.
It's like ridiculous. It's not going to be his fault. He's still going to have a great year. I just don't see him that high. That's just my opinion. Who I do see that high is, well, maybe not that high, but Alvin Kamara. He's our consensus number 4 ranked player. I had him ranked at 4. John, you had him ranked at 4. Tom, you had him ranked at 6. I'm guessing your thought process was similar to mine with Derrick Henry. A great player, just not ahead of some guys that you have on your list. Tom, John, Alvin Kamara this year? I mean, same old.
I think he's going to go off this year. If he's seen he playing with a torn knee last year, all these injuries, and he was like, 50 or 60%, yeah. I think he returns back to form.
He's a top 5 back every year. Every single year, and he's not even a true workhorse. Latavius Murray's going to get mixed in there, guys. I mean, not mixing, but he's going to get mixed in. And that does cap Alvin Kamara's upside. That's why I can't rank him ahead of my top 3 guys. But I do love Alvin Kamara. He's going to catch 81. How many guys?
81 receptions.
And he's going to get a lot of touchdowns, I think, this year. A lot more than he had last year. So I think he's safely parked at number 4. And Tom, you can certainly see him.
Yeah, finishing. The only thing is Murray. He helps him out. He's not a workhorse back.
No,
that's his only downfall.
Right, and he probably never will be. But that doesn't mean he's not great for fantasy.
No, it's his efficiency when he touches the ball. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't need the 250 carries. He only needs like 200. Well, his highest was 2018 with 194. But it's what he does with those touches. In 2018, at 194 attempts for 883 yards. 4.6 yard average, but 14 rushing touchdowns. Yeah. And then his 81 receptions every year he gets on 105 targets.
Literally every year.
Yeah, 709 receiving yards, 4 touchdowns. I can see him returning, and that's 15 games, which I'm guessing they probably rest the players week 16.
Yeah, and those weren't all full games either.
Nope.
So, all right, next on the list, guys, at number 3 consensus is Ezekiel Elliott, which should be no surprise to anybody. I think he's everybody's number 3. Tom and I both had him at number 3. John, you ranked this guy ahead of Christian McCaffrey.
Yep.
Explain.
I love
where you're coming from because I'm a Cowboys fan, so I'd love to see that happen. I just don't because he doesn't catch as many passes.
No, but I think you're going to see something out of Elliott we haven't seen. He's just going to get more opportunities than ever, and I think McCarthy's going to give him that. I see more goal line touchdowns for him. And the thing is, there was games last year where we saw Elliott not get the touches he should in our previous years. I think this is going to be a career year for Elliott. That's why I'm picking him at 2. I almost put him at 1.
Tom just mentioned to me that I just totally leapfrogged our number 5 guy. Oh, it's 8%. Yeah, that'd probably be why.
So I just think
so we're gonna go reverse a little bit after Ezekiel Elliott.
I do get what you're saying about the cap of the passing game, but I think it's a career year rushing wise that he's just gonna be dominating this year.
Yeah, so I mean we'll finish with Zeke Elliott. But Tom, I think you're with me. It's the fact that these guys get a similar workload, but Zeke doesn't catch near the passes.
Oh, no. Plus, there's way too many guys on that offense.
Right, yeah.
Dallas, so.
And we did skip Dalvin Cook, by the way, at number 5. Totally my fault. We all ranked Dalvin Cook at number 5. I think he would be ranked higher for me, but I'm concerned about... I mean, we don't like to project for injury, but when we're this close to guys in the top 5, to me, that's one of the determining factors of what separates these guys because they're so close. I factored in Dalvin Cook's likelihood to get injured, or at least the fact that he has in the past so consistently. I'm going to assume that it could happen again this year, and that's what scares me off of Dalvin Cook. Plus, I think the offense is not that prolific.
Gets banged up a lot, too.
Yeah.
So.
Right, yeah. He's the guy that we say, go get Alexander Madison as the handcuff because he's more likely to get hurt than some of these other guys. And Zeke's been really durable. Christian McCaffrey's been durable. Barkley came back really early from a high ankle sprain, so he's obviously got some toughness there. Dalvin Cook, John, doesn't really have the same toughness.
Now, when he gets hurt, he's pretty much out a game or two, or, he doesn't come back into the game. There's that injury concern, but if he can stay healthy or even manage 14 of 16 games, the guy is just, he can do it all. Catch, run.
Listen. I'm going to tell you this right now. You guys know how much I love Ezekiel Elliott. If you told me both these guys are playing 16 games this year, Dalvin Cook would be ranked ahead of Ezekiel Elliott. Because he just catches more. He's like McCaffrey. He's going to catch a ton of passes. I love Dalvin Cook. I'm just concerned that he has a likelihood to get injured, or at least has in the past. So speaking of Christian McCaffrey, we're going to jump back into number 2, and he is our, believe it or not, folks, and this might be controversial, but he is our number 2 consensus-ranked running back. I have him at number 2. Thom has him at number 2. John, you have him at number 3. You have Ezekiel Elliott ahead of him. So why don't we just talk about number 2 and number 1, because we're going to talk about number 1. Every single one of us had Saquon Barkley ranked at number 1. So I'll start with you, John. Why Barkley over McCaffrey?
They've just added the weapons this year. Andrew Thomas was a first-round pick. They also drafted another guard in the 3rd round. I believe they drafted another lineman in the 5th round. Evan Ingram's healthy. Another year for Daniel Jones under the center. So they've made improvements on defense. I think that with the improvements on defense, that Barkley will... The offense won't be running, going 3 and out, and the defense be on the field giving up points and won't be playing from behind as much. I think Barkley is just going to see a huge workload. He's put in the effort, everything. I just think Barkley is just going to blow his rookie year away.
Thom?
He's a generational talent. There's not many of these guys come around. It's him, Adrian Peterson, 13 years ago, and Barry Sanders. Those are the 3 best pure backs I've seen in the last 30 years.
Yeah. Look, he played 13 games. He had 217 attempts. Christian McCaffrey played 16 games and had 287 attempts. He's going to eclipse, I think, McCaffrey in terms of at least rushing attempts. And I don't see a running back, guys, even in 2020, getting 141 receiving targets. That's what Christian McCaffrey had last year. This guy had 1,000+ receiving yards. I don't see that happening this year. I would love to, because it'd be really fun to watch, but I just don't think you're going to see the same output from Christian McCaffrey this year that you did last year. As far as Mr. Barkley is concerned, he had 73 targets last year in just 13 games. So if you think about that pace, that's over 100. So I could see these guys evening out in terms of workload. I just think Barkley's better. And I know Barkley's got a tough schedule this year, but when you watch this kid, guys, he's freaking unstoppable. He is a generational player. He's a transcendent player. In this crown, this throne, as RB1 was always meant for Saquon Barkley. And you're talking about a guy that would probably marry Ezekiel Elliott if he had the opportunity. As a hetero life.
No, I know what you're saying. Not that
there's anything wrong with it. I love Zeke Elliott. I'm a Cowboys fan. I wanted Zeke Elliott the second he came out of Ohio State. And then I saw Saquon Barkley, and I'm like, he's better. And they're both, I think, talent-wise better than Christian McCaffrey. And I know that's sacrilege. Zeke's not going to get the workload that Christian McCaffrey does. Saquon Barkley is. he is a demigod out there. He is unstoppable. Right, Tom? I
He
mean,
can
how many
break any
Giants
play.
games do you watch?
He can break any play 80 yards at any time of the game.
I mean, when you said Barry Sanders, that's who he reminds me of to a T. Like the big,
He's bigger than Barry Sanders.
Yeah. I mean, he's built low to the ground. He's very shifty. He can catch. He can run. He can just do anything. So these improvements should help him out tremendously. And not a stab at Eli, because Eli wasn't the god-awful quarterback for his career, but last few years he was, though. And like I said, the supporting weapons around him are going to help him get better, plus an offensive line, plus an improved defense.
This guy had 4.6 yards per attempt last year, guys, on one leg. Week 1 against Dallas. Are you ready for this? 10.9 yards per attempt against a football team full of grown-ass men, and pretty darn good ones, too. And this guy dominated them. 5.9 yards a carry against a Buffalo defense, guys. 8.6 yards a carry against Washington, but it's 8.6 yards a carry.
That's college stats
That's
right there.
ridiculous. And then through the air, I mean, he has multiple games with 10-plus yards per reception, and against Washington, 22.5 yards per reception for a running back. That's incredible, guys. Saquon Barkley is the number one running back. Again, this throne has always been waiting for him. It's the ring that rules them all, and he's Sauron or whoever that guy is, and it was always supposed to go on his finger.
And let's not forget he's definitely got positive regression for receiving touchdowns and rushing touchdowns, everything, every category, I should say. And then McCaffrey, I love McCaffrey. I've loved him since Stanford.
Yeah.
McCaffrey's great, but we also can't forget that Matt Rule's there now. And also, I can't think of his name from LSU, the offensive coordinator.
I know you're
Brady.
about. Yeah.
Brady.
Yeah, Joe Brady.
They like to use multi-players for where they're at, so I think...
Well, look at what they did with Hilaire, too. Edwards-Hilaire.
Yeah.
I mean, they made this kid a star, and he's not near the talent Saquon Barkley.
But they also had the wide receivers be stars. Thaddeus Moss was good in LSU. I think that McCaffrey's going to lose some targets, but not like a significant amount. Like, you know what I'm saying? I think if he loses about 20, but it's going to make a difference. But I think they're not going to kill him into the ground, the usage, the 99% usage.
And I misspoke when I said Barkley. I meant McCaffrey. You look at what Hilaire did. I mean, McCaffrey and Barkley, he's not even on the same page as those guys. They're both going to be supernovas this year. But Saquon Barkley is going to scratch the surface of the sun in fantasy football, and it's going to be fun to watch. And I'm just sad that I don't have him, although John does.
I do. I'm smiling.
I'm surprised you haven't made an offer yet.
He
doesn't have a first-round pick. So anyway, that about wraps it up for our running back rankings updated episode, consensus style, here at the Armchair Fantasy Football Podcast. You guys get any final parting words?
Yeah, we need one more.
One more, the listener
one
league.
more person for the listener league. So
one more
which
spot
of
left,
you,
guys. Only one.
Which of you fans are going to step up and challenge us and see if you have what it takes to take one of us down or all of us down? I'm up for that challenge. I hope you get the listeners are too. So one of you just needs to join. Let's see what you got.
Yeah, email us at armchairfb@gmail.com if you think you got what it takes. I think that's about it. I was disrespectful to Aaron Jones. We did not play his Mr. Jones music, so we're going to play that on the way out. Don't forget to let the fade happen, John. You get a little jumpy with the button over there. So, for myself, the Fantasy Yoda, Thom Martell, and our resident blue-collar baller over there, John Sorois, we will see you next time when we talk about wide receivers. And we're not going to have a lot of opportunities to play this, I don't think, much more after about halfway through this season, so... We got to show respect to Aaron Jones as he rides off into the sunset, or at least that's what we think this year. So we'll let it play, and we'll catch you guys next time.
See you guys.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Armchair Fantasy Football Podcast. Thanks for supporting the show. Until next time.